Hello, AP Research students. This is Sean tonight, broadcasting from his classroom at Miami Senior High School. One thing that became clear to me over the summer while I was an AP reader, reading AP research reports from students, is that the difference between students who get threes, which is a minimally passing score, and those students who get fours and fives, is that students who score at the higher levels seem to understand better what their data actually shows, what their data can support and what it cannot support. So it seems to me that any research teacher that would want to prepare his or her students to achieve at the higher levels would have to do some instruction about how to analyze data. So this is from a research study I looked at in a previous lesson of a student that was a student of mine a couple years ago that scored a 5 in AP research. Her research question was how multitasking on a phone during a reading comprehension exam might affect students differently depending on their academic or their reading abilities. So she was able to show quite simply in graphic form that students who do not receive text, those in this orange bar, who do not receive text tend to score higher on reading comprehension tests than students who do receive text. So that's an important finding as it is, but in the research community to which professors belong to, this would not be enough discussion. And this researcher, a student from my class, she knew that as well. She knew that simply reporting mean scores was not going to be a way to convince people. So she has this entry down here. It says significance of differences. How significant is a difference between an 80.7 and a 78.5? And how significant is this difference between a 65 and a 55? And she was able to find these what we call p-values. And she learned how to do that as an AP research student. So what most of my students tell me at the end of each year, they say, you know, Mr. Knight, if you really want to prepare us to do a better job in AP research, then teach us more about statistical analysis. So that's what led me to create this exercise that I've shared with your teachers, and maybe your teachers will share some semblance of this. So what I'm giving you is a data set, a set of data that I collected and that we use for exercises in my AP research class. So I want to talk a little bit about this hypothetical study. It's a study that someone like me, an English teacher, would probably do. An English teacher that likes to read students' thoughts and essays, but is sometimes dismayed that students lack some understanding of basic English grammar. And one specific area would be the writing of sentence fragments. So a teacher like me would probably devise a study that would investigate different teaching methods. In this case, I have 3 that might lead students to not write sentence fragments in their essays. So with 3 potential teaching methods there, I also have a couple methods for gathering data. So I have a test, a grammar test that I can give to measure your knowledge of sentence fragments. I can give you a pre-test and I can give you a post-test. Between the pre-test and post-test would be the treatment. This is an experimental study. So again, think if this was medical research, I'd be giving you a pill or a medicine. That's the treatment. So my treatments here are 3 different teaching methods. I could teach grammar in the context of a writing assignment. That's one of my groups here. I've got another group that would be handed a grammar book to be told to read independently the chapter on writing, how to avoid writing sentence fragments. And I have a third group that they would be taught not through a textbook, and not in the context of their own writing, they would simply be taught from a test. So we would take a test, we would examine the test, see where they got things right and wrong, and that was their instruction. Then we would follow up with a grammar post-test here. Now, another way for me to gather data is to actually have students write an essay and to count up how many errors they have in their as they relate to fragments. So we could do that both as a pre-test before anyone received any instruction and as a post-test. So what I have here is I have a data set and I have a series of exercises that I have students participate in. We do this in class because a lot of time in class is spent on independent research, finding studies for the review of the literature, reading the studies, annotating the study, but sometimes we'll stop and do a mini lesson at the beginning of class. I typically do this. I pair students up so that they can work through this because a lot of this involves trial and error. A lot of it involves exploring. So I encourage kids to try to use Excel. But last year, a lot of kids told me, hey, can we use Google Sheets instead? And I'm like, wow, that's great. Use whatever you can. But the first assignment here is to simply organize the data into some kind of spreadsheet. So I want to see, can you do that? And for a lot of kids, that's a very big step. But it's a step that they value later on in the school year when they're actually analyzing their own data and they have to get it into some kind of form that allows them to do analysis on it. So we've got a first assignment here, and we've got a second assignment that asks students to calculate mean scores, standard deviations, and median scores of pre-test and post-test. And here I ask students to take these mean scores and to do a t-test on them. Remember, in this study that my student did, and she got a 5 in AP Research, she was able to apply this t-test. A t-test yields a p-value, So students learn how to do t-test, and they also learn another very common statistical procedure, which is to create a correlation. Some students are challenged to see if they can also, as extra credit, learn how to do an analysis of variance and ANOVA. So I've got a series of 6 assignments that we work on over the periods. Probably once every 2 weeks, we engage in one of these assignments. And another paper that I share with your teacher is these are just individualized little, I guess we could call them response sheets. This would be how you would turn in your answers to assignment 2, and this would be how to turn in your answers to assignment 4. So again, these are available to your teachers who will likely share them with you as you begin a journey of learning how to analyze data.